I'd like to cover another topic in my series on how to use your mind to the best of its ability. Now, most of these videos are on how you can train your mind in a certain way. This video is going to be a little bit different. This video is on willpower. Now, willpower is something that a lot of people talk about. People believe you really need to get it out to be successful. And that's not true for the most part. You simply have to use your energy when you have it, your willpower when you have it. So again, people talk about like addiction or doing something difficult, and they're like, just gut it out. Just do use your willpower. You don't have enough willpower, therefore as if willpower is this substance that's genetic, that some people have it and some people don't. Actually, everybody has willpower to various degrees, but mostly it's dependent on how you're feeling, how much sleep you've got, and other things going on. So what I'm going to do today is give you a couple of ideas on how to maximize your ability to use your own willpower. First of all, what I want to say is I want to talk about a couple of experiments, okay? So there's research done on willpower a lot. The first is kind of on delayed gratification. So there's a test. This is a really cruel test for kids, but little kids were given a marshmallow. Put in a room, a psychological experiment, marshmallows put down. I think there were other cookies and different things put down as well. It's been a while since I read this research, but then the research basically said, hey, listen, we're going to go out for a bit. If you leave this marshmallow here, then we'll give you another one when you get back, and you get to eat two marshmallows. If, however, you eat your only marshmallow, when we come back there's no marshmallow, we're not going to give you another one, okay? Well, guess what the kids did? I mean, there were some kids who immediately, as soon as the researcher turned their back, like, nah, just eat it, right? There were other kids who, they did really crazy things, like they're trying to do whatever they can not to eat the marshmallow because they want the second marshmallow. So some kids are like pulling out their hair, and some kids are like going to a corner and like glancing back at the marshmallow, but trying to stay focused on something else. And they were using willpower to get what they wanted, to practice delayed gratification. What's fascinating about this experiment is that, and this is a little bit off topic, but they re-engaged with these kids later on and found out that the people who had more willpower, who were able to delay their gratification, actually were more successful in whatever field they chose later on. So that's a pitch for delayed gratification. That's another video, though, okay? What I want to talk about is willpower, and I'll talk about another experiment done with university students. So in this experiment, two groups of university students were divided, and one group was told they need to memorize a 2-digit number, so like 23, 56, whatever it was, okay? The other group had to memorize a 7-digit number. Now, how difficult is it to memorize a 7-digit number? It's not all that difficult, right? You divide it into two parts, divide it into like a phone number, the first 3 digits, the last 4 digits, and you remember those numbers, you'll be fine, right? Or you create one number in your head, 1,745,633 or whatever, okay? It doesn't take a crazy amount of mind power, of intelligence, of memory to memorize that 7-digit number. Obviously way easier for the 2-digit number. So they were given a certain amount of time to memorize those. Then they were told to walk down a hallway to another room where they were tested on whether they got the number right or not. Here's what's fascinating. Psychological experiments, social experiments are never about what you think they're about, right? So it wasn't about memorizing the number. What they did was, in the hallway on the way to this other room, they had basically a snack section set up. Okay, so there was a section of like vegetables, really healthy snacks, and then there was also a section of like chocolate, sugary snacks that, generally speaking in our culture, we know aren't very good for us, okay? Here's what's interesting. The students who had memorized the 2-digit number, most of those students, they were far more likely to eat vegetables as they were offered for free on the way to the other room. The students who had memorized the 7-digit number ate a bunch of sugar on their way to the other room. Not 100% of them, okay? But out of that group, most of them went to the sugar. Out of the group with 2 digits, most of them went to the vegetables. What's going on here? What's going on here is willpower. People had less willpower if they had been engaged in brain activity, even a little bit. A 7-digit number isn't crazy, but even that little bit of brain energy that they were using up was exhausted somewhat, and so they didn't have as much willpower, as much energy, as much whatever you want to call it, to choose the vegetables over the sugar. They chose the sugar. Interesting, hey? So what do I want to do with this? What do I want to talk about with this? Well, Willpower is something that we have more of in the morning after a good night's sleep. Willpower is something that we have more of after a meal versus before a meal. When we're hungry, we have less willpower. And what I'm going to suggest right now is what you can do if you really want to increase your willpower and work on delayed gratification and do the things that you know you need to do. I'm going to give you some tips here, okay? The first tip is I want you to focus on getting the most done that you can in the mornings. Make mornings count. I've actually completely changed my schedule where in the mornings I get the majority of my work done that pays me money and it grows my business. I do that in the mornings between well, I'm up at like 4:35, between about 7 and noon. That's really my let's work and get things done time, okay? I typically don't answer my phone. If you try calling me, if you try communicating with me, you're typically not going to get an answer in the morning. And the reason is because I've really dedicated that amount of time, my most important time, to the most important things in my business. Now, if you make mornings fantastic, and again, the earlier the better, there's usually a sweet spot for people. There's different research that shows about between like 9 and 11 o'clock is kind of where your brain is most engaged, where you can learn the most. And then after that, if you're hungry, it changes. But that depends on when you wake up, okay? Know this. Within a couple of hours after you've woken up, your brain is functioning at a high degree. And our brains are gluts for energy. Our brains exhaust a crazy amount of energy in our bodies. There's a specific fuel form that our brains feast on. And our brain is like the Hummer of our body. It just guzzles up a whole bunch of fuel. So when you are engaged in an activity that takes a lot of energy or is really stressful for you, you're not going to have the willpower you want or need to get through something. So, another example. You want to start exercising? You want to start doing something that will take a little bit of willpower? Do those things in the morning. First thing. If you do them in the morning, two things will happen. One, you'll get them done, and secondly, you'll feel good about yourself. If you want to have a difficult conversation with somebody that's going to take a lot of energy and maybe you don't want to do it and you've got to push yourself to do it in the morning. Okay? So that's one tip. Do things in the morning. If you only made the mornings really count and you got fantastic focused work done, most times your whole day would go well. That's generally speaking how it works. What's another tip when it comes to willpower? Know that if you're not sleeping well, you're not going to have as much willpower. Directly tied to willpower. If you're not eating healthy food, if you're eating sugar, it's a stimulant, it gets your brain going in a different direction, you're not going to have as much willpower. If you are, again, I talked about emotions, work on your stress levels, okay? This is another reason why you should do things in the morning. Make things happen in the morning, because over the day, we hear news, we hear people talk about things, people bring up their problems with things, and that weighs us down, okay? There are other interesting experiments done this way, right? Where they watch judges and how easy or hard they are on people potentially going to prison or not. And what happens is, again, they're more lenient towards people, they're more forgiving of people, they're more willing to work with people early on in the morning or just after a meal rather than later on. But I want you to do this. If you have there's another way you can use willpower for other people. I want you to book your appointments with other people in the morning. Have those conversations with other people in the morning. Work on encouraging them in the mornings, because when you get the most out of them, everything works really well. I used to do this when I worked landscaping when I was putting myself through university and my bachelor degree. And what I did was I made sure that the mornings were really, really strong. So I encouraged people in the morning, I pushed people in the morning, I did whatever I needed to do to get people working hard in the morning. And I'd send out, I'd have a break, mid-morning break, make it really short so people didn't have the energy drop, and then I'd push out lunch to sometimes 12:30, 1 o'clock, as late as I could do it, that people were still working, because I knew that after lunch very little work was going to get done on a yard, on a property. We were constructing things, we were putting in trees and building arbors and things like that, and so I would push that out as far back as I could, and I made a deal with people. Listen, if you give me a good morning, we'll take an extra break in the afternoon. And you know what? We ended up getting way more done consistently. So I want you to think about, this is the action steps that I want you to take away with, is you have a certain amount of willpower. Everyone has a certain amount of willpower. You can train it somewhat, but really what you want to do is take advantage of the willpower that you have. So how can you change your schedule, and how can you start taking action on the things that you want to see change in in the mornings. Here's the second thing. If you know that you're going to have low willpower, it's 9 o'clock at night. Okay? Your brain's not functioning properly when it's later at night. If you know that you're tired and you're hungry, lonely, angry, this is an acronym, HALT, H-A-L-T, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Okay? If you know if there are times where you're experiencing those frustrations, then I would stay away from certain places or things at that time. If you know that you're more likely to waste a couple of hours, well then stay away from the room that has the TV in it. Do something else with your family or whoever else. But I want you to figure out how to protect those times. Maybe spend time with another person at that time that will help you be engaged in another way. Okay, so maximize the time that you do have, and the time or the willpower that you do have, and the times where you're not going to have willpower, figure out some other activity. Help yourself in some way. Okay, if you have questions or comments, feel free to put them on here, and we'll engage with you.